Welcome to the Crystal Library, a pocket-sized portal into the magical, mysterious, and sometimes misunderstood world of crystals. I'm your host, Ashley, and each week I'll guide you as we explore one enchanting stone, its history, lore, healing properties, and one easy way to invite its magic into your everyday life. Whether you're crystal curious or deep in the woo, this is your space to learn, explore, and expand your connection to the mineral realm, one glittering gem at a time. So let's open the library and see which crystal wants to speak today. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Crystal Library on Big Crystal Energy Podcast. I'm Ashley, and if you're new here, this is the show where we go deep into the world of crystals, witchcraft, and mystical living. And this particular episode on Tuesdays is my weekly deep dive on one particular stone. So we are in May, and I've been sitting with this concept that I wanted to do all of May, all about travel and travel experiences and travel as a liminal space. Because I think most of us wildly underestimate what's happening when we travel or when we make a big life change or when we're in between the person we were and the person that we're becoming. And there's a word for that, which is liminal. And liminal comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. And anthropologists use it to describe that phase in ancient initiation rituals where the initiate has been stripped of their old identity but hasn't yet stepped into the new one. They belong to neither world. They're in the in-between. And that space is very powerful. It's also uncomfortable, and it calls for a very specific kind of ally. So if you're going to be traveling this summer or this spring or whenever, you may want to consider picking up the particular stone that we're talking about today, which is Tiger's Eye. And I want to make a case that this stone has been specifically misunderstood by mainstream crystal culture. Because Tiger's Eye isn't just a confidence booster, as it's often marketed. It is something far older, far stranger, and far more useful than that. It is, across multiple ancient civilizations, a guide through the between worlds, a council stone, a psychopomp in mineral form. And I'll be real honest, I personally have never really been that attracted to Tiger's Eye. It is beautiful. I love the flash, but I just never really had much desire to work with it. I have a couple of small tumbled stones, but that's about it. I have to say, though, my opinion on the stone has very much changed after doing my research for this episode. So let's get into it. I always want to start with the earth itself because I genuinely believe the geological story of a stone is its spiritual story. And with Tiger's Eye, that is more true than with almost any stone I've worked with. I like to understand why certain stones are attributed the meanings that we often associate with them, right? And often the whole story behind how the stone is made and formed and created is really where we get that meaning, okay? So Tiger's Eye is what we call a pseudomorph, which literally means false form. And here's what that means in practice, okay? Tiger's Eye began its life as a completely different mineral called a crocodolite, blue asbestos. Parallel veins of fibrous crocodolite formed in the earth. Then, over millions of years, something extraordinary happened. Iron oxidized, silica crept in, and those crocodolite fibers were replaced, molecule by molecule, by quartz. Okay. But here's the part that really gets me. The fibrous structure survived. The quartz took the shape of the original fibers. So what you're holding when you hold Tiger's Eye is a stone that is entirely different from what it started as. And yet it still carries the ghost architecture of its former self. And that chatoyancy that moving band of light that travels across the surface when you tilt it in the light, that is photons bending through those ghost fibers. That shimmer is the memory of what the stone used to be, still visible in what it has become. Tiger's Eye didn't just transform, it completed the crossing and carried the evidence of it on its surface. It wears its own initiation. It has already made the journey that you might be in the middle of. That to me is the entire teaching of the stone in a single geological fact. Okay. So let's talk about the historical record because it is very consistent across cultures who had no contact with each other. And that consistency is worth paying attention to. In ancient Egypt, Tiger's Eye held a specific and sacred role. Its golden chatoyancy was said to hold the rays of the midday sun, connecting it to Ra, the solar god. The Egyptians believed it was imbued with the all-seeing eye, the ability to perceive across worlds, across time, across what is visible and what is hidden. And because of this, they placed it in something very specific, the sarcophagi of their pharaohs. They literally buried it with their dead to guide them through the afterlife. Think about that. The afterlife is the ultimate liminal crossing. And the Egyptians, one of the most sophisticated spiritual civilizations in human history, chose Tiger's Eye as the stone for that journey. Not for everyday protection, for the passage between worlds. They trusted the stone with their dead kings. Blue Tiger's Eye, specifically, also called Hawk's Eye, was associated with Horus, the falcon-headed god of sky and divine sight. It was called the Stone of Horus, thought to invoke his omniscient wisdom. Roman soldiers adorned their battle shields with it to deflect the gaze of their enemies. And speaking of Roman soldiers, this is one of the most well-known documented protective talismanic uses in the ancient world. Roman soldiers carried tiger eye amulets into battle to stay alert, to see clearly, to be aware of what was coming. In ancient China, it was a good luck charm, but it was also associated with the white tiger, the guardian of the West in Chinese cosmology. The West is the direction of setting suns, of death, of transformation. The white tiger doesn't guard peaceful territory, it guards thresholds. And in parts of Africa, where much of the world's tiger's eye is actually mined, primarily South Africa, it has long been used to ward off negative influences and harmful spirits. That tradition matters. It speaks to this stone's function as a guardian of permeability, of protecting what enters when you're open. And I want to pause and offer you a word that I think is the most accurate description of what Tiger's Eye actually is across this entire historical record. That word is psychopomp. A psychopomp is a guide of souls. In mythology, psychopomps are the figures who escort the dead or the living through the threshold between worlds. Hermes, Anubis, the Valkyries, these figures don't just protect the traveler, they navigate the between. Tiger's Eye has been functioning as a mineral psychopomp across multiple civilizations. The Egyptians used it to guide their dead through the afterlife. The Romans used it to navigate the threshold of battle. Blue Tiger's Eye was specifically used in scrying, in gazing by candlelight or sunlight to access past worlds. That's not protection. That's temporal travel. It's journeying through time to retrieve what's hidden. And Hawk's Eye, the blue form, is explicitly described as a tool for traveling back to the source of an emotional blockage, for finding the root, for journeying inward and backward to where the wound began. These aren't separate properties. They are one coherent tradition. Tiger's Eye moves through dimensions of experience, physical space, time, the inner landscape with equal facility because it has already made those crossings itself. So here's my pushback on mainstream crystal culture, because, I have to. Tiger's Eye gets called a confidence stone constantly, a prosperity stone. You can do it stone. And I'm not saying that any of those things are wrong, but I think they're a very large underestimate of what the stone actually is. Nicholas Pearson, who I trust on the deeper esoteric properties of these stones, calls Tiger's Eye a stone that helps you exercise your personal authority. Not confidence, personal authority. Your right to be in direct relationship with your own discernment, your own knowing, your own clear sight. And that's different. Athena Parakis, who wrote the book Crystalpedia, calls it the counsel stone, a stone of wisdom, courage, and discernment. It will guide you toward your highest truth and help you see what's coming around the corner so you can best prepare. Athena, who this stone is associated with, was not the goddess of brute force. She was known as the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. She wins by seeing clearly. She wins by knowing the whole picture. And the queen, Judy Hall, in her book, makes a distinction that I think is very important. Tiger's Eye differentiates between wishful thinking and what you actually need. It helps you collect scattered information into a coherent whole. In the liminal space, where when your identity is untethered, when you're bombarded by new information, when your usual routines aren't there to anchor you, that is the gift you actually need. Not confidence, clarity, not bravado, counsel, right? There's also something in the research that was very interesting to me. Tiger's Eye is described as particularly useful for spiritual awakening in people who are overly grounded, people who have difficulty making progress in their spiritual practice because they're too earthbound. And that does sound kind of counterintuitive, right? This stone that's so earthy, so warm, so rooted, it specifically activates spiritual awareness in people who are stuck in pure earth energy. It's a bridge. It pulls the celestial down and pushes the terrestrial up. And that is the liminal function again, holding the space between two worlds. Tiger's Eye comes in a few distinct forms, and I want to give you a quick orientation because I think they map beautifully onto 3 phases of the liminal journey. Golden Tiger's Eye, which is the classic, the one most people know, is the main character of this episode, of course. Solar energy, solar plexus, and third eye chakra activation, the counsel stone, the strategist, the one who navigates the crossing with clarity and wisdom. This is the stone for preparation and active transversal of the threshold for the decisions that need to be made, the discernment that needs to be sharp. Blue Tiger's Eye, also called Hawk's Eye or Falcon's Eye, is the rarest form and in many ways the most mystical. I do not have any. Associated with Horus, used historically in scrying and vision work. This is the stone for seeing the big picture, for journeying backward to find the root, for the practitioner doing deep shamanic or inner work. If Golden Tiger's Eye is for the crossroads, Hawk's Eye is for tracing how you arrived there. Then we have a Red Tiger's Eye, sometimes called Dragon's Eye, is the landing stone, the one that grounds you back into your physical body after the crossing.
Probably. Sit you quietly. Mommy's doing the work.
Okay. I have a little intruder.
I'm going to finish doing this and then I'll help you, okay?
Okay. I'm almost done.
Okay. Cassie, go down and ask Daddy.
I will. Just give me a few minutes, okay? And then I'll help you. Okay. Be very patient. Okay.
Recording.
So we have red tiger's eye, sometimes called dragon's eye, is the landing stone, the one that grounds you back into your physical body after the crossing. Root chakra, vitality, integration, it reunites your physical self with your spiritual self after traversal. If you've been through something that has scattered you, if you've crossed a threshold and don't quite feel like you're back in your body yet, red tiger's eye is the one that says, you made it, you can come home. So you have prepare, traverse, land. That's the complete journey. And this stone family holds all three phases, which is really interesting, I think. So here's the thing about May, and here's the thing about the travel frame. I don't actually mean booking flights and hotel rooms. I mean the real kind of travel. May 1st is Beltane in the Celtic tradition, the ancient fire festival at the precise midpoint between spring equinox and summer solstice. Fires were lit at crossroads. Crossroads, again, the most fundamental liminal geography, the place that belongs to no single road. The veil thins. The between worlds breathes. May is itself a threshold month. So I want to ask you, where is your threshold right now? What crossing are you in the middle of? Because it might be a literal trip, a journey, a move, a pilgrimage, but it might also be a career that's ending before the next one has named itself, a relationship that has already changed, even if the paperwork hasn't gotten up, a version of yourself that you've outgrown but haven't fully released, a grief that's in the between, not new enough to be raw, not old enough to be integrated. Tiger's eye doesn't require you to be physically moving. It requires you to be honest about the fact that you're in the between. That's the only prerequisite. A few ways to work with this stone intentionally during threshold times. Hold it when you're making a decision that involves competing desires, what you want versus what you actually need. You want to you want to differentiate between the two. Ask the stone specifically, what do I need right now? Not want, need, right? Sit with whatever comes up. You can use the chatoyancy as a meditation tool. Tilt it in natural light and watch the band of light move across the surface. Let yourself track the shimmer. It's not just beautiful, it's replicating the visual experience of moving through something. You are watching light traverse a threshold over and over in the palm of your hand. Let it attune you. Carry it when you travel, literally in your bag, your pocket, your car. Red tiger's eye specifically is noted as ideal for car travel and physical journeys. Let it guard what enters your energetic field when you're in unfamiliar territory and therefore more open. If you're doing any kind of scrying, past life, or inner journey work, Hawk's Eye is your companion for that specific type of work. It activates the third eye specifically for that inward and backward movement. And if you recently completed a major crossing, if you're on either side of something, but your nervous system hasn't caught up yet, work with red tiger's eye on the root chakra. Literally hold it at the base of your spine and breathe. You made it. Let the stone confirm that. And I want to come back to where we started, to the geological fact at the center of this stone. Tiger's eye was once something else entirely. It underwent a complete molecular transformation. What it was made of changed entirely, and yet it kept the architecture of its origin. It carries the memory of crocodilite inside its quartz body, the ghost of what it was, shimmering through what it became. And that is not coincidence. That is a teaching. The threshold doesn't erase you, it transforms you. And if you do it right, if you cross with clarity and counsel and the right guides, you emerge on the other side with the full architecture of everything you've been encoded and integrated into everything you're becoming. Tiger's Eye has already made that journey. It has been making it for millions of years. It knows the way. Thank you for being with me here today. And I hope that you have enjoyed this perspective on Tiger's Eye. And let's just enjoy this month of liminal spaces and travel journeys. Bye. Thank you for visiting the Crystal Library. I hope today's stone offered just the magic you needed. If you loved this episode, share it with your favorite mystic and tag me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if you're feeling generous, leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps this magic reach more curious souls. Until next time, keep your crystals close and your intuition closer.